Hey everybody, it's Bearded Jay and Nick. We are back from the Arizona D-Bags at Inde Motorsports Park. This was a fascinating race. For starters, it snowed in Arizona.
Well, as usual, we have a weather instance.
Fortunately, climate change is totally a hoax, however. Nevertheless, every single car in this race, they all got to the track, they all showed up, they all passed tech, and they all completed at least 69 laps.
Nice.
Yeah, so the next time you're going to a Lemons race and there's a little rain or fog or something, you want to get on the phone and call us and say, oh, no, my trailer cannot be out in this kind of inclement weather. Just don't be a little biatch, okay? Just look what these guys did. All right, here's what happened.
What happened was, some of these Arizona teams ran the race in their convertibles. And one pro tip, if you own an F-111 with its swept back wing design and it snows, your F-111 may indeed pop a wheelie. This is nothing to be concerned about. The next day, just shovel the snow off and it will return to its normal parking position.
Hella sweet. You know, usually we don't really care who wins these things, but this time Drunky Ranch won overall in their 4-cylinder BMW Bobtail. It was a spectacular car and they did a really great job. And even more amazingly, Johan finally won Class C with the 9-finger drifter.
Yeah, and let me point this out. Johan's car is this Toyota Corolla wagon that has a modern overhead cam engine swap. Yeah. This car could actually win the race.
It should actually be dominating the entire race. But
the reason why it's even in Class C at all is because it's run by Johan.
Because Johan.
Yeah, but now that he's won, it'll never be in Class C ever again.
And speaking of Cackle and Cauldron crew rounded it out with their Class B win
in a Turbo Festiva. Also hella sweet, the 27 Club Racers. This is a team that has a BMW that has a theme of all of the various famous musicians who have died at the age of 27.
I know nothing.
Yeah, they've actually been around for 1 year, which we knew because they brought us a 1-year anniversary cake, and it's 1 year of wasting their money racing in Lemons. They had a custom cake. That was hella sweet. And to celebrate the occasion even further, they brought a second car. Now, when your first car is an E46 BMW, your second car is obviously going to be a 90s Thunderbird.
Right, yeah.
And they topped off the Thunderbird with a great and somewhat inexplicable Mormon theme. Hella sweet.
Hella sweet and also but terrible. The Hong Kong Cavaliers, they returned with their Mercedes S-Class.
Yeah.
$500 my ass. Well, I wouldn't give you 500 cents for this car. It is so incredibly bad. It smokes. The body is all hoopty. The suspension is all springy. I don't think it shifts anymore. It's like a Christmas tree of warning lights. If anybody ever really needed a case study in how the car on the internet, $500 my ass, is the most repulsive, hantavirus-riddled, terrifying, worthless piece of crap you have ever seen in real life, come to a race and look at this car.
Speaking of big German cars, we had the return of the West German Pushrodders. Now this is a Porsche 928, and for simplicity's sake, they ripped out the complicated Porsche V8 and put in a big American V8. And at some point during the race, they went to check the oil, and well, the oil level was okay, but the end of the dipstick was suspiciously missing.
Oh, just like car talk.
They wanted to find the end of the dipstick. They dropped the pan. Somehow this turned into a 30-quart oil change, which would have made sense because I think that's factory for the normal 928.
For a 928 motor it is, yeah.
But this had like a 350 in it, so I can't explain it. They slapped it all back together, and then the transmission blew up.
Chuck Donnelly brought his Avanti, one of my favorite race cars.
Why you ruined classic.
And he kept saying all through the weekend, like, man, Indy really suits this car, which is sort of like, you know, when Porsche or Cadillac goes to the Nürburgring and they tune their suspension precisely for that environment. I think Chuck is like, this is going to be the Avanti ring from now on. It's the only place he's going to race this car. It's so good.
We had a new team, Team Way Slow, and an Infiniti M45.
$500 my ass.
Yeah, and here's the thing, with a car like this, it's modern, it's got a big powerful engine. They found a wrecked one and they thought, oh man, we've figured out the loophole. Lemons is not gonna know what hit him. And in fact what happened was, as they showed up, Judge Steve says, man, that thing's gonna be in limp mode. And guess what happened? The good news is when this thing would stop running for no apparent reason, which is what these kind of cars tend to do, they had a solution of, like anything else that's modern, you turn it off and you turn it back on again.
Works great.
And the only problem with that in a racing context is when you're doing it on the track, eventually the corner workers and safety crew are going to get kind of annoyed with you. So they had that problem. Then, once they finally figured it out, they couldn't keep the thing on the track because it had so much power. And so Judge Steve, as a penalty, made them re-theme the whole car as the Maytag Nothing But Spins team. They all had a great sense of humor about it, and we hope to see that car again.
Now, I said earlier that every single team that registered made it to this thing. There was one team that almost didn't make it. We got a call from them Thursday night, like, we are snowed in. Like, there is an avalanche. We cannot get in. Like, oh, I don't know what to tell you, dudes. So this was the War Hamsters, and they bought the ex-Nutsack Racing Toyota Celica.
Yeah.
So they had some struggles with this car, although they did keep it running most of the time. And then right up toward the very end, the rear end completely packed in, and they were all left with, why did we even come here? We had a perfectly good excuse not to come.
Yeah, well, and Steve said that, oh man, if I had known that those guys were going to buy the ex-Nutsack Racing Toyota Celica, I might have warned them about the team a little bit.
Steve, I think that is kind of implicit in the name ex-Nutsack Racing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Heroic Fix went to High Anxiety, which is a rookie team in a really bad Honda Accord. Now, early in the race, they ate shit and sucked rocks into their timing gear system. Now, of course, real race cars don't have covers on the timing gear.
No, that's added weight and polar moment, so it can't have that.
Yeah, and it broke their timing belt. They had another timing belt, but they didn't have the special tool to hold the crank while putting it on. They had to drive to God knows where in the desert in Arizona. They found the tool, they got the belt back on, and then they rejoined the race on Sunday. That was heroic.
Now, Crock of Shit Racing, one of my favorite team names, by the way, almost got the Heroic Fix, and this was because they totally went clang right into a wall, broke the wall. We had to actually rebuild the entire wall.
Yeah.
Wipe the car out, but they did put it all back together, and they finally managed to get it, and they got back out. That was pretty heroic too. Although we thought really at the end, if you've got, not a very big race, you've got a huge racetrack, it's in the middle of the desert, there is absolutely nothing to hit, and they find the one wall to run into and hit it so hard that it breaks, you cannot get a trophy for that.
Yep.
Yet another team was the, I think, fabulously named $500 My Ass. And they had a 240Z.
Their team really should have been called Why You Ruined Classic.
This is true. But in fact, what made this team kind of exceptional was the incredible lack of preparedness and forethought, which they brought to this effort. Like, for example, they did not have a windshield on their 240Z, so they just put a piece of metal in front of the driver and drilled a couple of holes. And they're trying to drive the tech like, I can't, bird box, I can't see a thing, clang, running into stuff. So the fix for that was they went to like Home Depot and got marginally better expanded metal.
Yeah.
I think that you use to keep your dog, from nosing through the screen door.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so they did go out. They went around and around. They spun about 1,000,000 times. And for these guys, Saturday just a disaster.
Well, they spun after getting flagged for being too slow.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
Yeah, and they,
that's right.
Yeah, and then when they increased their speed from dangerously slow to still slow but not quite flaggable.
But approaching dangerously fast for them.
Yeah, apparently that was too much for them to handle, and they spun off the track like 40 times.
Yeah, so they kept getting sent back to the paddock, which was also not good because, all they'd brought to eat was like cold leftover rice. They had a drill, but no drill bits. They had not really worked this through with the checklist.
Yeah.
All of which culminated in a very special trophy.
Yes. Another team that was present at Indy works at an actual sewage treatment plant.
Because of course they do.
And they brought us a glass jar of real effluents, which of course is raw sewage that's been run through their plant, and it comes out mostly pure.
And along those lines, on Sunday, these guys, they became mostly pure.
Yeah, so we gave them the bottle of effluents from the sewage treatment plant because they had come in as raw, festering and exited mostly pure.
Yeah, but I still would not drink that. Judge's choice, and it's been a long time coming, was Le Citron, the giant Pontiac sedan painted bright yellow. And frankly, look at the car. How can you not give that a trophy?
Yeah. I Got Screwed went to our friends, Team Lowball, and one of their many AMCs. This was the Hornet Roustabout wagon.
Roustabout.
And they were leading Class C for much of the weekend and got pipped at the very end by Johann's Cheaty Corolla wagon. They were still in the top 10, I think, which in that car could be an IOE contender, but there was more spectacular stuff, which you will see soon, so they got screwed.
You know what Johann was saying as he passed the roustabout? Oh, man, there go the roustabout. Organizer's choice went to the incredibly well-named Geezers Escort Service. These guys have been around, and they drove, as Steve said, they drove the living shit out of that thing. They really hauled ass in this car, and also, as Steve said, and they really are geezers. Yeah, these are not necessarily the youngest men, but they were in it, and they were committed.
Those motherfuckers is old. Index of effluency went to the aforementioned very spectacular Borgward Isabella Coupe of Fistful of Cotter Pins.
Great name.
And this was a barn find, and by that I mean they found it parked next to a barn where it had been for the last 50 years. The car had been untouched. In the glove box was like an old registration card from 1969.
Nice.
And they basically just dusted it off, put new tires on it, and ran, and the car was amazing. Actually, one of the few things they did change was, for some reason, they said, you know, this thing really needs an alternator conversion, and so they did that, and that was actually one of the few things they had problems with. There was a belt alignment problem. They had some issue with old schmutz in the fuel lines. They did have to replace the fuel tank. Other than that, it just went around and around and around. It didn't quite come in last, which for a car of this provenance and history was more than enough. I mean, just look at this thing.
To be fair, for the record, they also did buy a water pump, the one water pump in the world still available, from the president of Borgward, USA.
Yeah, well, he's the president, founder, and only member of the American Borgward Club.
Yes, exactly right. Okay, here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Mike, were you driving?
Yeah.
What was it like?
No, sorry, I wasn't driving. He was driving.
It was a little sketchy. It's slippery out there.
So the grip, due to the speed, is the problem.
Yes, the speed is the problem.
Okay.
Send her over the edge.
This stalling, Brad.